Greetings and welcome to the Aquarius Music Festival. Our first program in the series featured the piano with our great artist Arthur Rubinstein at the keyboard. Last week we turned the spotlight on the cello and the voice with Rostropovich and his wife Wisniewskaja. Today our solo instrument, as you saw, is the violin, and it's in the hands of one of the world's finest young virtuosi, Miss Kyung Wha Chung from South Korea. Kyung, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the Aquarius studio. And before we hear your performance, there are just two little things I want to ask you about. And the first is about the instrument you'll be playing on.
Yes. The instrument is a Stradivarius, and that was the instrument I used for about 7 years. But now actually I have a different one, which is a Aquarius. And the difference of the sound, I must say, is enormous because of, it's entirely different kind of quality in depth.
Yes, they're both good sounds. It's not that the Stradivarius...
Oh, it's fabulous, because Strad has a totally very strong and very brilliant, which is unlike the Strat, so it was very good for the performing. And I would say in the room it's a little bit too brilliant, or harsh, can be. But the Aquarius is soft in near presence, but in the whole it carries enormous amount, and it's much, certain ways, deeper.
May I ask how much an instrument like that cost? You bought this new Aquarius.
Oh, it's a fortune. And I should say I'm very fortunate to have it.
But different people have different ideas of what constitutes a fortune.
Well, about, let's say, $250,000 to $200,000.
Let's quickly move on to my other question. My other question is about the concerto itself. Because when I was a boy, I remember we always thought the Max Bruch was a sort of showpiece, but when you play it, it sounds like one of the great concertos. What do you feel about it?
Oh, it's because I love the piece, and I think it's apart from what certain people think of the piece as, how people are, they think only Beethoven or Mozart or Bach, this kind of composition is in such a high standard. I agree, but I think this is one of the most beautiful pieces written for the violin literature. Of course, I play Saint-Saëns, Wieniawski, and these kind of pieces, but because it's so beautifully orchestrated, and it's, as far as a violinistic point of view, it's so well written, and I think as far as musical point of view too. And strangely enough, that only this Bruch concerto and the Scottish Fantasy and very few Bruch pieces have performed, but
this one really is lodged in the hearts of the of the big public.
Yes, I think it comes and goes for the public's favor,
But this one is certainly there now.
I think it's a...
Kyung, thank you very much for that little program note. We'll be talking again.
Was born in
Seoul. Have I got it right? Seoul or...
After all, I've been practicing it all the afternoon.
Kyung was born in Seoul in South Korea. She's got 6 brothers and sisters, all other musicians. She made her debut in Seoul when she was only 9, playing the Mendelssohn Concerto. In her teens, she lived and studied in New York. And in 1967, she won the Leventrit competition in America, one of the world's top prizes for violinists. And in the last 5 years, her career has rocketed her to the very top of her profession. Well, has early success spoiled Kyung Wha Chung? Let's ask her. I don't think so. I don't think it's spoiled you at all. In fact, you seem to enjoy racing around the world as much as ever.
I love it very much. In fact, I think I'm learning more and more. Unless one really loves it so much, it can be very difficult, because these days everything is under compact, under such a
strain.
Yes, traveling so much in such a short time, being everywhere,
In fact, you told me that you've never really settled down anywhere now. You've given up your flat here. You're never in a country for more than a month at a time. Is that right? Except your home country of South Korea.
Yes, but I don't think this will be permanently like that. And eventually I hope to have
settle down, have children and stop playing.
No, but in that sense, I think artist has to feel very settled in one place, I basically believe. But now I really enjoy traveling and being everywhere, so I don't miss it that much.
And you are, in a way, the sort of spokesman for South Korea. You're probably the world's most famous South Korean, rather like Kiri Te Kanawa, the New Zealand singer, is sort of Miss New Zealand last year. Have you had special honours from your own country?
Yes, actually. When I went back to Korea, they honor me with awarding the medal, the highest honor for the artist, and I'm basically very much for Korea. I'm so in a sense. Sometimes I wonder why I'm so patriotic, but actually, I love my country, and they've given me so much, support in every sense, And whenever I go back there, people are so warm, and they love music so much. They're absolutely crazy about classic music, you know.
The
So-
Chung family is a bit like the Bach family must have been in Germany in the 18th century, because there are, how many of you? You are one of 7 children.
Yes,
And 4 of them are professional musicians, is that right?
yes, but performing only 3, because the cellist and the pianist brother, who in fact just
Won a prize in Moscow.
in Moscow, and when he went back to Korea, I was there, and
course.
they gave him big parade.
Which you no doubt stage managed. I sometimes wonder whether you'll really ever be satisfied with just playing the violin. Would you like to be a conductor as well?
Oh, certainly not.
Because there have been 1 or 2 girl conductors.
No, I think there could be an occasion where I can perform with a small ensemble.
Like Myung-Whun does, for example,
Sure.
conducting as well.
Yes,
yeah.
but that's not quite getting into conducting. You know, it's making chamber music ensemble, you know, in that way.
Well, you'll be like Rostropovich. He said on our program the other day that he'd always wanted to be a conductor, but he was a bit busy with his cello first. That's why he hadn't done it till he was
Yeah.
40.
Yes.
I hope you'll conduct long before you're 40, but don't ever stop playing the violin. What is your reaction when you see yourself on television, for example, playing and hear yourself?
Very awkward. Very
Awkward.
because basically, for instance, even listening to the record, I very seldom listen to my own record. Only when I want to check something, how I did it at that certain time, I put on a record to check only few phrases. But I find it very awkward watch myself over the screen.
You must have been asked before about the movement. I love the way you move with the music, rather like a dancer. But is it necessary for you to move in that way?
It's neither necessary or unnecessary. I just do it very naturally. In fact, I've been asked the question several times before, and no, no, but not like that. They say, "Do you think of it before?" That is the way I've been asked.
I mean, do you plan it in
Yes,
advance? I'll move here like
yes.
this to get the best of
And
the emotion.
my reaction used to be, you know, just big fury. You know, I said, "Of course not." You know, but because if I thought of it, I could never do it. But I remember there were a few occasions where I was so enthusiastic at certain performance or certain rehearsal, the conductors used to get very offended, and they used to think, "Well, please leave the conducting up to me." and so one of the concerts, I remember I played it very straightforward without moving, and I was very unhappy because I was aware I wasn't moving. So I was aware all the time of my non-movement.
So
you
it's
know?
rather square by comparison.
Yes, and the performance was entirely distorted
Yeah.
because it was not me.
When you play, you seem to be playing with the musicians. I mean, actually turning to egg them on and to work with them. Are some orchestras more responsive than others?
Oh yes, I feel the difference immediately. For instance, when I first start to tour and perform with the different orchestras, I was so busy concentrating on myself. Of course, I knew far little about scoring and aware of. I was so, you know, conscious and
Just of your own work and your own
concerned.
technique.
Yes,
But
now I'm more aware of them than practically myself.
But I've worked with you, travelled with you with the orchestra when you went to America a couple of years ago, and you seem to be then almost the orchestra's mascot. I don't know whether you have a special feeling for the London orchestras, do you? The London Symphony?
Oh yes, London Symphony is one of my favorite orchestras, and I sometimes catch them in different. You know, they're entirely different. They respond entirely differently to, of course, different occasions. But there are a few times they can be very difficult. You know, but I love the orchestra and I really enjoy working with them. You know.
You said earlier that your brother had just won a prize in Moscow,
Yeah.
and I know that you yourself had a very important prize winning, as I told the viewers just now. How important is a prize to the launching of a career?
Well, the prize can be extremely helpful to launch a career, and I basically dislike, I'm sure that many of the viewers would agree, that competition is very cruel test for a student and young artist. But in order to get certain place to express yourself, to get the opportunity, that there are so many, that is one way of being, you know, recognized. And so it does play sometimes rather big role, unfortunately, because I would like to see the day when there will be absolutely no competitions, but I think that is quite, impossible.
Well, next week in our program, Zubin Mehta, the conductor, is featured in a film we've got of him conducting Bolero. He won a prize as a conductor, the Liverpool Prize. The following week we're in Israel with the Rubinstein piano competition with all the 24 competitors there. So I guess prizes are one way and another very much part of our music festival for the next few weeks. I'd like to be only too grateful that you won a prize when you won it, because it gave us the chance to hear you eventually over here, and to wish you the most enormous success for the rest of your career, and to thank you for coming this evening. Thank you very much. That's all for this week in Aquarius. As I say, our international festival next weekend features Zubin Mehta, the Indian conductor, who's at present on tour in Europe with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, so that really will be an international program. We'll be showing a tremendous performance of Ravel's Bolero, made on film, a film which won an Oscar. It's not to be missed, so until next weekend, I'll say goodbye from all of us in the Aquarius studio. And let's